Welcome back once more to another episode of the Nile and Gerry Tea Podcast. I am your host, Nile Joan Rivers, joined as always by my co-host, Jerry Thompson. Jerry, how you doing tonight?
I'm okay.
Yeah. It has been a day. It has been a day. It has been a week. It has been a couple of weeks for me. They're real quick at the top. Gonna talk about some things that went down this week. Maybe you've seen on the internet already. Maybe not. Maybe this is the first you're hearing of it. So last week I made a advertisement for Wizards of the Coast. They paid me to make an ad for them. So I filmed it, edited it, sent it to them. It was just like a short form video about Tarkir pre-release. Short, sweet, simple, beautifully executed by me, of course. I sent it to them. They run it. It is running, on their Reddit pages, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all over, from the WotC accounts. And I've worked with WotC many times. I've done a lot of sponsored things with them. This is the first time I've done a thing that they put on their channels. All of the past stuff I've done with them, they have sponsored me to make a thing on my own channels. So that's a big deal. That is a substantial difference because obviously their reach is much farther than my reach. And people are really excited about it. A lot of people, tons of people tagged me on all sorts of socials to be like, "Hey, I saw you in an ad. It was really cool. It was really cool to see that you were in an ad." A lot of trans people specifically were really excited. And they were like, "Hey, I didn't expect WotC to have a trans person in one of their official ads. That's really sick." Like faith in WotC slightly restored. And I was like, yeah, it is really sick. I'm glad you're excited. There was a thing where a lot of the people tagging me were also, they would be like, "Hey, I saw you in an ad. That's really cool. Oh, the comments were terrible though." And I don't know why people kept saying, I mean, I know the comments were terrible. I did not at any point look at any of the comments because it is not my first day being trans on the internet. I
Yeah.
know better. I know so much better that if someone like WotC is posting me, I'm not looking. I'm not looking. It's just bad for my health. So I have, to this moment, never seen a single one of these comments. I knew they would be bad. I was unsurprised that they were bad. But for some reason, people kept telling me they were bad. And so I had to make a post over the weekend that I really didn't want to make, where I was like, "Hey, I'm glad that you're excited about me being in this advertisement. I think it's cool too, but like stop fucking talking about the comments. Like all you are doing is making people want to go see these comments. Like you're just drawing attention to this thing that we should all just be ignoring. We should all
Yep.
just be totally ignoring." And it pissed me off to have to make that because I was like, me doing this is also doing that, Like it is also drawing attention to these comments, probably on a larger scale than all of these other posts. So it's like I'm really shooting myself in the foot, but also I need you all to shut up about these comments.
Shooting yourself in the foot in the short term, but long term, maybe teaching some people a
Yeah,
thing.
hopefully. I mean, that was exactly like the reason to do it. And, fortunately, people did shut up about it. After I made that post, no one else tagged me and was like, "Wow, the comments were terrible." And I didn't think about it again because, again, I wasn't looking at the comments. I would never. I'm not stupid. So Monday rolls around and I get an email from one of my contacts, Wizards of the Coast, who I was working with on this project. And she was like, "Hey, I just want to check in on you. Do you have time for a call later?" And I didn't know what that could possibly be about. My best guess was that I had mentioned in an email earlier that I had been in a car wreck last week, which, side note, I'm totally fine. No one was injured. It's all good. But I had mentioned this car wreck and it was a big car wreck. And so I kind of thought maybe that's what it's about. Maybe she's just concerned about my health, which would be, very nice. So she calls me and she was like, "Hey, we loved your ad. Thank you so much for making it. We are aware of all of like the horrible shit that was said in the comments." And I was like, that makes one of us because I haven't read them and I won't, like it's not a big deal to me. And she was like, "I just want to make sure you're not receiving any direct hate, vitriol, death threats, whatever. And I was like, no, again, I'm not reading the comments. Maybe there's some hate in like my Twitter DM, like hidden requests folder, but I'm not checking that either. Like who cares? And she was like, okay, well, just as like a safety thing, we took the ad down everywhere. And that sucker punched me because that is exactly what these people wanted. And they got it. And they got it because they were shitty to me. And I would have never let them win. I would have let them make 1,000,000 comments. I would have let them make 1,000 death threats. Like there's no amount of this stuff they could spew that would make me take it down. Like there's no shot. It's never happening. So that really like caught me off guard. I felt really shitty. Horrible day Monday. Just felt awful, sick to my stomach all day long. I spent a lot of time thinking about it, trying to figure out what to do. And Tuesday rolls around. I message her and I'm like, hey, I've had some time to process. I would like to talk about this. And she's like, sure. So we call, I get on the phone. I'm like, hey, I really appreciate you hearing me out. I just felt like this was really mishandled. And I explained all of this stuff to her, all that stuff I just said to you. And she was very receptive. And she was very much like, I am sorry for how this was handled. We want to do better in the future. We want to have better moderation tools. We want to make sure we can platform you in a way that keeps you safe and protected and all these things. And I was like, I appreciate that. I just really wish, like, I feel like my agency was robbed because no one came to me and said, do you want us to take the ad down? Because I would have said, no, leave it up. Run it twice as much. See if I care. Like it's fine. All of that felt really bad. And, I also said a thing I really want to make sure of is that this is not going to make WotC feel like they shouldn't platform trans people. Like, I don't care if it's me. It doesn't need to be like you tap me for another ad. I just want to make sure trans people in general will have these opportunities. And she assured me that we would. And, she said all the right things really in the phone call. But at the same time, still left it not feeling very good. And a big reason for that was I felt like I was being dishonest to my community, where WotC kind of got to score points with everybody, right? They scored points with my people, the trans community, my audience, by having me on an ad in the first place. That was a major win. That was huge. It meant so much to so many people. And then they scored points with the people who want to kill my people by taking it down when pressured. And that sucks. And it is a thing where my audience, my community will never know that transpired. Right? Like if I don't tell them, they're not going to think like whatever happened to that ad. They're just going to be like the ad's over. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a thought. It's just not going to be a thought. And they will have still scored those points. They will still curried that favor with my people, even though they mishandled me, and that just felt really bad. And it made me feel like I was like somehow like a tool being used against my own community in a way. It felt really bad. So I decided to make a post about it, big long thread explaining all these things that I just explained on here, with no real like call to action, no real like I want anything done about this, just a here's what's happened, here's how I felt about it, I hope it's better in the future. And that's really it. And this is not the subject of today's podcast at all, really, but it is a thing that we just felt like had to be talked about at least a little bit. I appreciate everybody who has shown support. It means a lot, making a public sort of call out like this. And I almost hesitate to even call it a call out, It's really just, I don't know, publicly being truthful comes at a tremendous cost, a tremendous personal cost. And I'm not really going to get into all the intricacies of what that personal cost is, but it's steep. It was not a free space to talk about this, and it really only negatively impacts me, most likely, aside from being able to sleep at night.
Right.
So, it was a big deal. It sucks to be in the position to have to do it, but it also does kind of feel good to know that like when my convictions are tested, I will stand by them. So that's good to know.
Yeah, I think that's good for sure. I can relate in a lot of ways. I also have plenty I could say on the subject, but I don't think it's very fruitful or helpful necessarily. So I'm glad that you said something publicly,
Mhm.
and I totally understand why you wouldn't, because it would probably feel dishonest if you just
Totally.
kept silent about it. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're kind of forced to, really. It's not like, you did not do it out of like malice or retaliation or whatever. It was
Not
just
at
I
all.
I, I kind of have to do this.
Yeah. I would have loved to not needed to do it. That would have been
Yeah,
way better for me. That
would have
would have
been
been
way better.
sick for me. Yeah. Would have been really sick for me to not do this. But I mean, like you said, hand felt kind of forced. But yeah, that's all we're really going to talk about on that. Unless, as time marches on, more stuff like this occurs, in which case there might be a big long episode about it. But until then, I think that's plenty. Jerry, why don't you harshly segue us into what we are talking about today?
Tournament etiquette. You know
Tournament
who
etiquette.
you know who has no etiquette? People on the internet. But
True.
when you sit down in front of someone and you actually look them in the face, a lot of people lose their badassedness that they have when they're behind a keyboard, you know?
You found the line. You found the line to segue us. That was you got there. You got there.
It's a stretch, but I do my best. Yeah, I don't know. We kind of had like someone had like asked us questions related to this, right? Like that is kind of what started me or like prompted me to make this thing, and I was just like, yeah, I guess this is just like not a thing that I've ever really talked about. And certainly there had been some discussion when Arena started blowing up specifically, and like Magic esports and all that stuff, where people would start showing up to these live events having never really played one, but like had been playing online for years. And we talked about
Mhm.
how it's like, oh, you can kind of tell they're an arena player because they don't really know how to shuffle a deck or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And even outside of just like the playing of Magic stuff, yeah, there's a bunch of etiquette stuff going on too, where it's like if you did not grow up in this, if you have not been around for like years, it is possible that you would not inherently understand all this stuff.
Yeah, totally. And it's weird because it's also a thing that like people kind of act like you should know all of it. And like
Yeah,
how do you learn that? How do you learn that other than like awkwardly fumbling through it for a year or two until you also understand it and then you can also look down on people who don't know it yet.
yeah, it is very like gatekeepy. I don't know why. It's like I'm pretty sure that again, I'm very old. When I started playing tournament Magic, I probably had to mess each of these things up at least once, and that was what allowed me to learn. Was like, oh, this person got mad when this thing happened. I should not do that, and then that creates like some sort of like greater understanding. You know,
Totally. Totally.
it's like
Yeah. I
it's like
mean,
going to a
it's the
foreign
only
country.
yeah, absolutely. Like, and I mean, the real problem is, at least when you go to a foreign country, there's ample resources on the internet to help prepare you. Like, if you want to learn about the language, the culture, the customs, whatever, that information's out there. I think it's a lot harder to find for this specifically. Like I know people have talked about it. I know there are resources for it, but like it's kind of a thing that's sort of changing a little bit all the time. The resources for it I think are very like scattered to the winds. Like it's not a simple thing. Like there's not like a Rosetta Stone for how to be a good Magic tournament player or whatever.
No, I can't think of a single instance where someone was like, "Oh, I'm going to create a piece of content solely on this." It's like maybe mentioned in passing here or there in various articles or whatever.
Yeah, no, totally. And like good fucking luck finding all those articles, piecing them together, and then implementing that in real life.
No, it'd be faster to just play tournament Magic for 2 years, I think.
Yeah, really, like truly, it's so crazy. Like I mean, that's how I learned, as I just went to tournaments, made mistakes, felt like an idiot. And like we wonder why the numbers aren't better for competitive Magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like yeah, like I am a fucking freak. So I was willing to push through the like, I, messed that up and looked or felt like an idiot. But most people wouldn't, like take
Yeah.
your average casual Magic player, convince them to try a tournament, already monumental effort, and then they get there, they make a mistake that embarrasses them because they didn't know. How the fuck could they know? And then see if they ever do that again.
I know plenty of people who are just like, well, I can't ever show my face there again.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And that's like
So
such a normal, valid response.
so before the show, I was like, oh, did my bullet points they miss anything? I think I did miss one, and that is this. It is just like, I don't know, maybe be like friendly and welcoming to new people or people who like clearly don't get it, are not as enfranchised as you.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally. And
cuz
this is why I really feel like sometimes you'll hear like comp grinders be upset that low level tournaments aren't higher rules enforcement level.
oh yeah.
Like they want everything to be like pro REL. And it's like, no, it is actually like good and by design that like the more entry level competitive Magic stuff is as low REL as possible,
Yeah.
as accessible to casual Magic players as possible. Even if that frustrates you sometimes because like a person, got away with more in your game than they would have at the Pro Tour. You're not at the fucking Pro Tour, buddy. Newsflash. You're at an RCQ with 6
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah, I mean, I the thing that gets me, I guess, the most is the fact that I am the only one that gets punished for like takesies backsies, because I will never ask for it if I mess up.
Mhm.
But if and when they mess up and notice it, they're like, "Oh, can I have an oopsie?" And it's just like, "Well, I'm somewhat
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
obligated to give you this oopsie, right?" But like
Right, right,
that is
right.
me going through the motions of having tournament etiquette, and like in that
Yep.
moment, depending on what it is, like I don't know, say my opponent like plays a thing to draws a card that draws a card and passes the turn, but they miss their trigger. And
Mhm.
then at some point through my turn, they're like, "Oh, I gotta draw a card or whatever." It's like, okay, yes, you get to draw the card, but like in the future, please like remember your things. Please be clearer about it. Like you can't keep doing this all the time, etc. And I
Mhm.
hope that that sort of thing is a learning moment for them. But like you could very easily just make them feel silly or stupid or whatever. It's just not helpful for anyone.
Yeah, and that is very much my approach as well, is like the first time, usually, I'll be like, that's no problem. And then I will add a thing of like, but going forward, like you really need to remember this trigger. And that's kind of like my subtle-ish way of being like, you get one, like you get this specific one time, and if we go to next turn and you do this again, I'm gonna be like, sorry, like we talked about it, like you just gotta remember that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I typically do that too, even at like higher REL stuff, just
Mhm.
because that then does set a precedent that you don't want to get walked over. Or like
Mm.
I mean it's a weird spot where they're asking for a takesies backsies, and you are put in the position where you have to be the villain as a result of them making a mistake. And
Mhm.
you have established you get this one, this is me being benevolent, but in the future I'm going to say no and we're going to be okay with that. And they kind of have to agree with that
Yeah.
in the moment.
Yeah, totally. I mean, their hands are kinda tied, like, they're sort of beholden to what you want at the moment, but I will say one exception to this is if I have made decisions based on the mistrigger, it's too late, Like, if you have, like, a
Yeah.
card draw thing and I'm sitting there like, "Okay, Jerry missed his trigger. So he doesn't have this extra card. So I feel confident about the cards that, like I do all this stuff and I make a decision between two things based on this info. And then as I'm doing that, you're like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to draw a card. And be like, I'm sorry. Like it's been so long. I've already like made choices because you
Yeah.
didn't have this card. Like, I'm sorry.
It
Like
is
this is missed.
it's way sketchier in that spot. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. But in general, I'm kind of the opinion that like more or less paper magic should function how it is supposed to. You know what I mean? Like it should function mechanically the way it is supposed to. So like if you were supposed to draw that card, I would rather you draw it than miss it. you know?
Well, in an ideal world, I would like that.
Mhm.
And in an ideal world, people just remember their things.
Yeah.
But we're in the unideal world very clearly at this point.
Yeah.
And it just means that if you just let someone have something every time that they miss something, that makes it more likely that people continue to miss things. Like, you have no reason to tighten up. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think there needs to be something in place that's encouraging
Sure.
you to, like, hey, don't be sloppy, don't be a mess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think you're definitely right. I don't know. I would just rather I would always rather win knowing that like you got all your bullshit and I still beat you, you know?
Yeah, same.
Like I not to say that I will always give you your bullshit if you're like missing it over and over, but like I would just rather the game. Like if you sat me down and you were like you can play one of two games with Jerry. One, you're gonna sit down, not a single trigger is gonna be missed. Nothing's gonna be missed the whole time, at least by Jerry. Or he's gonna miss a couple things that could be advantageous for you. I'm gonna take the first one every time. I would just rather play against that. You know, like that's just more fun. And I do think that like part of the skill of competitive magic is remembering these things on your own and like maintaining these board states and all that stuff. I just like the game better when it works.
I do too. I mean, I want to play games that don't have interruptions where you come to those like awkward social moments where they're like,
Mm.
can I have this? And I'm just like, and we have to talk about,
Oh, it sucks so hard.
let me skip that stuff, please.
It sucks so hard. I hate it.
Yeah, I don't know. For the most part, I just try to be clear about what is happening at all times
Mhm.
and like overly clear, like overly communicate what is happening in response to what, make sure that
Mhm.
there is no confusion. I very rarely have to call a judge
Yeah.
because of that.
No,
And
absolutely same. You know, like I really try to articulate everything. One thing that is like it is like a vocal filler thing that I've been spending years trying to stop doing in competitive events because it's almost gotten me in trouble multiple times is I will say like okay to things a lot of the time as a shorthand for okay, I understand the words you just said.
yeah,
You
it's
know?
nod effectively,
Y-
but like
yeah.
that result.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You'll be like, I'm casting this. And I'm like, okay. In response. But there's like, if there's like a pause after that, okay, it starts to get sketchy, right? Because
Oh
it's
yeah,
like, oh, you said okay. So I started resolving this, you know? And it's like, no, I didn't mean okay. That is okay. That resolves. I meant, okay, I agree. You have cast this.
yeah, I acknowledge that this is on the stack.
Yeah.
Basically,
Uh,
is there a better word for that that is not also shorthand for that resolves?
no, I don't think there is like, I think you have to just spell it out. Like, I think you have to be like, this is on the stack or just say nothing, you know,
Yeah,
like that is kind of like what I am trying more and more to do is instead of like following that instinct of saying something and being like, okay, just shutting the fuck up for a second
yeah.
and like really processing that information and then, you know, expressing whatever I need to express about it. And sometimes that's sure that resolves. Sometimes that's I need to look at my hand and pretend like it's not two islands and then say, "Sure, that resolves." You know, like it's any number of things, and sometimes it's this is on the stack, comma. You know, but I think
To me,
just pausing is better.
yeah. I mean, to me, it sounds like how you might be reacting if you were playing online. Like your opponent plays a thing, and you're like, okay, like dot dot dot, like
Yeah,
thinking
yeah, yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah,
Like you have this inner
totally.
monologue going. Yeah,
Hmm.
don't speak to yourself out loud, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the less you say it best when you say nothing at all. That's how I feel about competitive magic until you know then need to communicate clearly and frequently.
Yep. So the fun part about this is where there's like the graph of tournament level magic where it's like the new player events are generally like pretty casual and pretty fun and relaxed, and
Hmm.
then you get to like the mid level and it starts getting like really sweaty, really try hard, and then it goes back down again when you get to the higher
Hmm.
level. It's like you get to the pro tour, suddenly it's like relax and chill again. It is definitely people in the middle camp most often or people who have like freshly graduated from that camp, I suppose sometimes, where they look at this like, oh, but I'm giving away equity. You
Yeah.
don't understand, because like if my opponent, gets confused and then misses a trigger as a result, like that could be beneficial for me.
Mhm.
And most people at the pro level would just be like, shut up. Like, learn how to play the game, focus on that. Don't
Yeah.
focus on silly bush league tactics. That is not what this game
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, try to play the actual game.
Right. You are not we are not at the point where this is a concern, right? Like we are still at the point where just like sequencing is your concern, like things like that, like playing your spells at the right time is your concern, knowing when to. This is kind of funny. One of my like more kind of like casual magic friends said something on a post of mine recently where she was like, "Oh, you're probably just going to roast me for playing a instant at sorcery speed." And I was like, "No, knowing when to do exactly that is like high
Yes.
skill magic." Because a lot of people in that like middle part of the trench that you're talking about are like played at the last possible moment, like no matter what. And it's like, yeah, except for like sometimes it's like last possible moment where it gives you the most benefit, right? So like
Right.
sometimes that is just main phase,
Yeah.
just main phase this flash spell.
Right. I like either that. It happens a lot with like card drawing stuff, I think specifically, where
Mhm.
people are
Oh,
like,
totally.
you say go with 4 open mana, and then like end of your turn, cast brainstorm, draw a bunch of spells that you could have cast, and it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's like, I don't know, that makes me think of Slay the Spire, a game that I've played more than any other game, maybe even Magic, like, so much, and, like, my one of my go-to heuristics with Slay the Spire is if I know I'm gonna play something that has card draw, that has to be the first thing I play, 'cause that could
Yes.
change everything. That could change the
Yeah.
whole game, you know? Like, there's not really much of a point in planning beyond it because it could be anything, and yeah, like, definitely card draw stuff people are like, "Well, I'm gonna wait till you're in step to do it." And it's like, you coulda just main phased it, and that coulda changed everything. That coulda who knows what you coulda drawn.
I see that happen a lot too, where it's like they don't want to like, yeah, tap out for the card draw spell, and it's like it draws them a land that they would have preferred to have played, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they're
yeah.
just like they play the card drawing thing, then on tap with a bunch of lands in hand, but are short on mana to do the other stuff. And
And when they, like, play land they don't need to play, then card draw spell, it's like, "Come
that
on.
yeah, that's kind of funny too. But
What are we doing here? What are we doing here?" I had another thing about this, like I've been talking about this, like, middle trench thing a lot with people actually, where someone recently who used to play Magic, like, 10 years ago. She's still kinda, like, connected to the scene, but doesn't really play anymore, definitely doesn't play competitively anymore,
yeah,
and she was like, "I know in my day, like, it was pretty rough out there for, like, women. Is that still the case?" And I was like, "It kinda depends on, like, where you are, both, like, in the world and also, like, in Magic." And I was like, in this spot that we're talking about is where it is like it's worst. This is where like it
yeah,
sucks the most to be a woman playing this game. Once you play against opponents who are like actually good, it's for the most part really good. Like it is for the most part very easy. And a big part of that is because those really high skill players, they don't feel like they are owed victories. They don't feel like they don't have as many like preconceived ideas. Like you sit down against some person at a fucking RCQ who's never like top aided the RCQ and they see that you're a woman and they're just like, all right, can't wait for the next round. This is an easy 2-0 because they're stupid
yeah.
ultimately. Whereas, like, you sit down against someone who's been on the pro tour, they are not making any assumptions because they've been beaten by everybody, right? They've been beaten by women. They've been beaten by 9-year-olds. They've been
Yeah.
beaten by elderly people. Like everyone you can imagine, they're like, anybody could beat me. Any fucking
Also,
person could beat me.
even if they actively know that you are bad, like they know
Mhm.
you personally and they're like, you are terrible, they still know that they could lose. Like,
Yeah, and they're gonna play like that. Like they're gonna
yeah,
play like it matters and like you could beat them. Like I mean, I know I mentioned last week, living in Denver, which I don't live in Denver anymore, but living in Denver and playing RCQs against like Sam Pardee. I've never taken a game off Sam Pardee. I've played him multiple times. every time we play, I know that he is like playing like it's real.
Yep.
Like I have never one time gotten the vibe playing Sam that he's been like, she's never taken a game off me. I can kind of like clock out for this one. He is playing for real. And I love that. Like that is what like really makes it fun for me that I'm getting like 2-0'd over and over is that I'm just like, man, he's really fucking going for it. And I am having to like, I mean, I'm sure he's not at like 100% just like at an RCQ, but like I'm at like 120 against Sam Party. And if he's at like 90%, it's still just like not close to enough. You know what I mean? Like that's sick. I love that so much.
Well, part of that from Sam's side is it's just good habitually to do that. Like
Yeah, totally.
treat matches the same. Don't get into like bad habits in terms of like losing focus, not paying attention, like going easy on someone or whatever, just going into autopilot, those sort of things. It's like if you want to stay on the top of your game, you kind of have to try every single time.
All right. Yeah, you have to play at the top of your game. Yeah, totally.
I had this video I wanted to do for a while. That was this shuffling thing where I
Mhm.
also wanted to teach people how to shuffle because that was a
Yeah.
thing I recognized a while ago. I think this was like 2019 or something where there was like no real resource for this either. At least not
Mhm.
in the Magic sphere. There might be somewhere else, but I don't know. I feel like again, if you haven't been involved in card games your whole life, you may not understand like that there are reasonable mechanics to things, or like you might not understand that like what you are doing is not actually randomizing your deck, etc.
Mhm.
And another part of that is like when I see someone crack a fetch land and they put their hand down
Mhm.
right over where they're shuffling their deck, I'm just like, it's dangerous because if at any point you drop a card, like again, in terms of, keeping things clear in the game, it is a nightmare when that happens. Whenever I shuffle my deck, you will always see me like move my hand way off to the side every single time and then shuffle. And I think if I see like an opponent being very clear and careful about that sort of stuff, they get a lot of respect from me because like they're
Yeah.
very clearly being cognizant of like, oh, I want to, keep this on the up and up. I want to keep this clean.
Yeah, it is. I really think, and no one ever really talks about this, but I really think that like literal hand management is a big thing that no one is teaching new and casual players. Like like literal physical hand management stuff. Like I think I talked before about the whole like scrying or something, and you'll see like casual players like scry almost like into their hand, and it's like you keep these separate, please, like just to like not make things weird and sketch or whatever, like there's just a lot of like a lot of that. And even just like, I something I try to teach all of my newer casual Magic friends is the whole like, you're holding your hand, you draw a card, and like before you even like fully set it into your hand, you play land for turn. And it's like so evidently the card you drew. And I'm like, listen, it probably just doesn't matter for the Magic that you're playing, but it's also just like a good habit to
Yep.
not let your opponent know for free that you drew a land, because if they are good and they have been keeping track of what they think is in your hand at all, you just made their job 1,000 times easier, right? Like you just gave them like a day off basically, and you didn't need to. You could have just like put it in, played a land. Or this one's like my favorite, when someone is like surveilling or scrying and it's like instant, like they're just like, bottom, or like, top, like it's just like, oh, okay, land then. Or
Yeah.
they're like, top. It's like, okay, not a land then. Like it's
I
cracks
just
me up.
feel weird surveilling, especially when it is a land, but it's a thinker. Because then I
Yeah,
end up
yeah.
bidding it, and then my opponent's just like, "Why were you tanking for so long?"
Big choice.
What does
Land's
it
an important
mean?
card.
I do like making my land drops. I'm guilty of
Oh,
that.
it's so strong. This is like the really big thing that I try to impress upon my newer, more casual friends. As I'm always just like, your land bases are too greedy. I don't even
Yeah,
need to look at
always.
your fucking EDH deck. I know your mana base is too greedy, and then I do look at it and I'm like, what do you mean 35 lands? Like Don't you want to cast these spells?
Yeah, but they don't want to cut
Don't you
anything.
want to play your don't you want to play your cards? Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
My friend just messaged me or like tagged me in our mod thing in our Discord and was
Mm,
talking about pre-modern, how her friend's friend I think sent like a specific elf deck list because they
mhm.
knew that she was playing elves or whatever. It was like, oh, our list similar. And she was playing 4 more lands than her friend. It was just like, why are people just not playing any lands?
They hate casting spells.
Yeah,
They like
but you get
having
to
spells, they hate to cast them.
yes. Yeah. Well, you never want to just be like, "Oh, nothing to do, go." But like a handful of like rares, I guess like for this deck
Yeah, yeah,
specifically,
yeah.
all commons, but
Sure.
like think of all the Multaney's acolytes I'll get to play if I ever draw a second land
Someday. Someday maybe.
someday.
Someday.
Another big one for me is just about respecting your opponent's time. And this I think is one that is a thing that like people who've even been playing Magic for like 10 years don't really do. Because I had a specific conversation with a friend of mine that I was definitely way more guilt trippy. I'm still sort of guilt trippy, especially with my good friends. And I'm trying not to be, but I definitely guilt tripped him a lot where I just gave him a bunch of crap for like taking forever. He's like, well, we didn't even go to turns. And I was like, well, sure, but like you took all 50 minutes and now it means like, your opponent doesn't get like a restroom break, they can't get food, like, they you have no idea what is going on in anyone's life, basically is my point. And it's like they may need that time to do something and to just make sure that they're not stuck in a chair all day. And it's also just nice to have a break in between rounds a little bit,
Yeah, totally.
so yeah, I don't understand the like, well, I can take 70% of the clock because like I'm not using all of it, and we've still finished in time. It's just like that's not even the point to me.
Yeah, this is a sort of tricky one for me because I agree totally, but I also like for me personally, I have this like natural inclination to sort of match my opponent's pace.
You're not alone.
And yeah, and this has gotten me into trouble in the past where an opponent is just a much faster player than I am. And I am trying to keep up with that for some reason when I don't need to. And I am playing poorly because I just am not used to playing at this pace. And then like I get beat and we have like 25 minutes on the clock. And then I get out of that and it's like I finally exit the fog and I'm like, why was I playing so fast? Like we have 25 more minutes. So there have been times at tournaments where I have like said to an opponent, like, you play really quickly and that's really cool. I don't play as fast as you. I don't want you to think I'm slow playing you. Like I'm gonna play as fast as I can, but I am not gonna be playing at this speed. Just because like externalizing it somehow like breaks the spell for me a little bit.
Yeah,
And I am able to just like play at a normal pace. But yeah, like I slow play is so weird, right? Like slow play it's so hard to quantify and identify and like really truly be like, yes, this is slow play. But I don't know. I mean, I think you should play at a good pace. I don't think you should, be like pushing yourself to a level of like discomfort for it.
sure. I mean,
But
I'm
how do
not.
you know if you're playing slow?
Well, so to be clear, I'm not talking about slow playing necessarily. It's just like, oh, well, I know that we have 10 minutes left, and so I'm gonna take
Mhm.
like all of that 10 minutes and like to make sure that I don't mess it
Mm,
up, you know?
sure.
Or like we have
Yeah.
20 minutes left and we're pretty deep in game 3. I can just play as slow as I want. And it's like, no, you still have to play at like the reasonable pace of play that you were expected to play in, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that's kind of my point. You can't suddenly slow down because you have time.
Okay, yeah, totally. And being aware of the clock as much as you can is really good. Like I've talked before about wanting to like bring my own clocks. Like bring just like a tiny little table clock that I can just like sync up to the round timer just so like it's there and we both can see it easily all the time. Not to like pressure my opponent or whatever, just because like even with like the screens and like all this stuff all around,
Still got to be like turning
easy to lose track.
around and
Yeah,
yeah,
it's really like you're in the zone, man. Like you're in there. It's so easy to just be like, whoopsies, end of game 1. That took 20 minutes. Obviously, the next 2, if there are 2, cannot take that long. And
right.
ideally, if there's only 1, it also does not take that long. You know, like it's just really easy to do that on accident, I think. It's like a Vegas casino in there.
Well, I think a lot of people are not concerned about getting draws too. And
That's crazy.
I especially think newer players. They're just like,
Mm.
well, you know, yeah, I played slow, but it took a long time and we got a draw. And it's like, I feel like if I get a draw, my tournament is over in a lot of cases. Like
It's so brutal.
there have been so many events where like, you know, PTQs or like SCG opens where X1 and 1 misses on tiebreakers or whatever. So it's like getting that draw is effectively a loss in a lot of
Mhm.
cases. And it also means that you are now in the draw bracket playing against more people who have had trouble finishing their rounds, which just makes for a pretty miserable experience overall,
Mhm.
for me at least.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I think about it this way too. We're like, you sit down to play against someone and there are 3 match points on the line. And if you get a draw, between the two of you, you only get 2 points. And you both decided to like incinerate a point between the two of you. Like, why did you
Yeah,
do that?
you've truly affected the match point economy of this event, you know? Like there have been so many times where I'm at some event and it's like, you know, we're in the like close to final rounds and people are doing the like the breakers math of can we draw? And then it's like, well, normally yeah, we could, but then like this fucking guy has a draw which has just like made all the math weird. So, you know, maybe we can draw, but like probably we just have to play to be safe.
Yeah.
And it's just like, come the fuck on, you know?
Well, I mean, if that person won instead of drawing, it's possible that like, you know, you'd still have 10 people in contention and you'd still have to play or whatever. But I just think that
Maybe.
I just think that it is, you know, spewing equity to a degree where it's like,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
why are
That
we
point
both
doesn't
okay with
go to
this?
anyone else. The house just takes it.
Yeah. So
It's
we're
fricked.
both walking away losers. That sucks. That feels really bad. I feel like
Yeah.
we probably should have just played faster and that could just not happen. Could just avoid it.
Now, I really hate going to turns. And part of really hating going to turns, I mean, it's all the things you've just discussed, but it's also like just being who and what I am in the space. No one's ever fucking conceding to me in turns. You know what I mean? Like, no one, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter what the state is. If we're getting to turns, that person is either like asking me for the boldest concede anyone's ever asked me for, or they're gonna die on a draw. You know, like there's just no world where I'm getting a concession out of them. Even if they played slow, I'm clearly dominating on board. I'm one turn away from winning. It's just not happening. And it drives me insane. It makes me like few things can really tilt me in Magic like that tilts me. Like knowing that it's like, man, I know there are so many men in this room that you would have conceded to right here.
Yeah.
And you just like won't do it for me because I don't know, pride, misogyny, who knows, you know, annoys the hell out of me.
My first
So I hate
thought was
turns. I
like,
hate going to turns.
yeah. My first thought was like, oh, now I kind of want to like play in tournaments to orchestrate this scenario and try to
to get to
like
turns with women.
slow play you into turns and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
try to gather a large crowd of people around us and then
That's so funny. Make a demonstration.
just feel like, well, you are very clearly beating me. I think everyone here could agree, right? And so I believe the gracious
Yeah.
thing to do is to concede, and then I will never play
If we're ever at an event and we get a feature match, we have to make this happen. We have to make this a reality. Doesn't matter what the event is. We just got to do it on camera. It'll be so funny. It'll be so funny, and then we can clip this moment from this podcast.
Oh yeah,
That'll
just
go crazy. That'll do numbers.
it'll have to be like, I don't know. I imagine it will take upwards of like 5 years to happen.
Oh, absolutely. We're literally just 1 week ago, we sat down here to do this podcast. We had planned months prior to both go to SCG Denver. We were like, we're going to do it. Let's do it. We're going to meet up. We're going to film this shuffle video that you were just talking about.
Yep.
We're going to play Magic. We're going to do all this stuff. And then last week I was like, how you feeling about Denver? You feeling cancelable about Denver? And you were like, oh, thank God. Yeah, I would love to cancel our Denver plans. 5 years is an optimistic estimation.
Immediate feeling of just pure
the relief I felt.
Oh my
the
God.
Relief of just like, oh, I'm not getting on a plane in a week and a half. Oh, thank God. I don't have to like prep for an event and travel more and do all this bullshit. What a time.
Doing that.
What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive.
But yeah, we'll be in the same bracket at a tournament that happened in Atlanta for like a round.
Yeah, we were 2 seats away.
Yeah.
You got a feature match in a round where you should not have gotten the feature match. And we all know
agree.
that to be true.
I agree.
You said it. It was me. So Jerry and I were like 2 seats away. Round 4, SCG Atlanta. We're both 3-0. Also 3-0.
2-0.
Nicole
2-0,
Tipple.
2-0. Only 2-0.
Was this round 3?
I think it was round 3.
I don't think that's right. Whatever. We're either 2 or 3-0. Equal match points to us both. Nicole Tipple, Pro Tour darling, America's sweetheart, who I am cued into. Me, Nicole Tipple. I sit down and Nicole's like, neither one of us are setting up. Like, that's how sure we are that we're going to be the feature match. We're like,
that's why.
We're like,
that's why.
Yeah. We jinxed it. Nicole's just like, I don't think we should really like set up. Like, and I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, we are definitely going to get called for the feature. And then they were like, Jerry Thompson and whoever Jerry's playing. And you stood up and you were like, this should have been the feature. And we were like, yeah, we agree. Like it was crazy.
Specifically, I said it not being a feature was misogynistic.
Yeah. And, and you're right.
Yeah. And then I got my ass kicked.
Oh, that's crazy. I kicked Nicole's ass.
Yeah, and then she top 16'd?
Right. That's right. Well, yeah, but it was so funny. After the event, she came up to me and she was like, Nile, how do you feel knowing that you kept me out of top 8? Because that is how tournaments work. And I was like,
I love that.
Sorry. She's great. Love Nicole.
Well, that was when I met her. There was a person in between. Well, so you and I were kitty corner, right? So I could see you. And then there was a person in between me and Nicole, so I did not see her. And then at some point she just leaned back and she was like, hi, Jerry, I'm Nicole. Nice to meet you. I was like, where'd you come from? I got jump scared. I was like, nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all I've ever said to her.
Love her to death. Love her to pieces.
I've only heard positive things.
She's great. No notes. Nothing bad to say about her. No tea. No tea on Nicole. No shade, no tea.
Oh, she's new. Give her time.
I mean, she's already been a part of. She has been a part of tea, but like, it's not her fault. Like
sharing a name, right?
Yeah. No. Okay.
Okay.
That's also true. But there was also the event with like the guy who got really mad.
Oh yeah. No. Yep.
Yeah. And that's just like whatever. Like I wouldn't even really call that Nicole's tea. Like
no.
That's that guy's tea.
Yeah, I think so too. How often do you riffle shuffle your opponent's deck?
Never. I would never do this. I would never ever do this. I would never do that. That's crazy.
Why?
Because that's their property. It's their stuff, Like if they want to riffle shuffle mine, like whatever, I guess. But like I'm gonna treat their shit so much better than I treat my shit because it's their shit,
I feel the same way. Pro Tour Kyoto 2009, I want to say. I get my ass kicked there as well. But there are some really cool side events, including a vintage event. And one of the people on my team was still in the Pro Tour. So it was like, here, take my vintage deck. And it's 2009. It's not 2025. The cards were expensive, but they weren't like, oh shit, like I'm carrying around like a house's worth of cards or whatever. It was like
totally.
Maybe I had a legacy-ish sort of deck in today's parlance, but like pretty expensive, right? And his stuff's pretty nice. It's got like some Beta Underground Seas, whatever. And I'm playing in this event, and thankfully I never play against this dude. But at some point, my friend plays against this guy who grabs his deck and immediately goes to riffle shuffle it. And this is, again, like no proxy vintage. And dude is just like, stop. Like, what are you doing? Also, like, double sleeves had not been invented yet, I believe.
Single sleeved, real vintage riffle shuffling.
Yeah. And he was just nuts. Like, this is out of control.
Bananas.
This is like round 4 or something. Like this guy just probably
Mhm.
been doing it all day. Yeah,
No.
don't do that.
That's that's crazy style. I every once in a while someone will riffle shuffle my deck and it always catches me off guard. Like I'm always just like, "Whoa, where did that come from? I didn't know that was on the table." You know? Like I know legally you can, I guess, but like why would you? I sleeved them. Just,
Yeah, it's not hard to find some other way to randomize.
I
I
will
think
shame my opponents when their sleeves are bad. I will do this. I'll do this move a lot where they hand me their cards and I put them together and it's like where like it's like you needed to resleeve 3 months ago kind of feeling.
sure.
And I'll just look at them and be like, "How old are these sleeves?" And they're like, "Oh, I know, I'm sorry." And I'm like, "Oh, this feels horrible." And they're like, "I know, I'm sorry." And I'm like, "Yeah, you should be sorry. You should be sorry. This is gross." Are you about to pull out? Hell yeah.
So I'm weird when it comes to sleeves. I like fresh sleeves. I don't
Yeah,
even
for
like if I'm
audio only listeners, Jerry pulled out a box of God knows how many KCI.
I think it's 25 KMCs.
What did I say? KCI is
KCIs.
the fucking card.
Yeah.
KMCs.
25 Clark Clan Ironworks.
Boxes of them. Yeah, yeah, KMCs. 6 sleeves, by the way. KMCs are great.
I like the red and black Hyper Phoenixes a lot. I started with
Mhm.
the blues and I was like, these are okay, but they're like a little too wide. And so I was just like, I'm
Mm.
not gonna mess with them. And then I tried both the reds and the blacks like way, way later. And I'm like, oh my God, these are so good. I could have been using these the whole time. So now I'm just all in. I
Yeah.
was buying cases from distributors. Anyway, I'll play like 4 rounds of a tournament. And, just like if I play another tournament, I will want to re-sleeve my deck. Like I am just weird. I like the new sleeve shuffle, but like these sleeves are also not cheap,
Mhm.
And I totally understand if someone, Magic's already an expensive game, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Like if you can't afford or do not want to buy sleeves like every single second, I
Mhm.
totally get that. But yeah, there comes a point where it's just like if months go by, it's like, come on. Like you can't even enjoy this. I don't believe that. Like shuffling
Yeah.
this dirty, ragged mess.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. I am very similar to you, and I really like fresh sleeves. And part of it for me is also like I think I just like the ritual of sleeving before a tournament.
Mm,
Like anytime I don't re-sleeve before an event, I always have this feeling of like I forgot something. You know what I mean? Like it feels too like ingrained in me at this point that like before an event, either, night before, morning of, whatever, whatever, I do the resleeving ritual. And that is, I don't know, it helps like center me, I think, and get me like ready to game.
I do like it. It is nice and calming, and I don't like.
It's meditative.
Yeah, I don't like feeling rushed when I'm
Mhm.
doing it.
Oh,
Like
that's
it.
horrible.
Yeah, I hate that. It's like
That's
I want to
awful.
be peaceful and relaxed and just doing my little fixation thing.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Same page, same page.
Yeah, overall, the riffle shuffling thing, I think I don't know, you look at how people might shuffle like a deck of playing cards or whatever and just be like, "Ah, magic cards are the same." But much like sleeves, magic cards themselves are also not very cheap. And yeah, just in general, what Niall said, I try and treat other folks' stuff better than I would treat my own because if like I loan something to someone and they return it to me just like in terrible condition, I know how bad that feels. And so I never want to do
Yeah.
that to anyone else, right? Same thing with like handling my opponent's deck. I don't want to, you know, mess up their cards, mark their cards, do any sort of thing like that. And I guess
Now,
similarly, just in terms of like just the sleeves themselves, like I've had people just
mhm. Oh,
like my
yeah.
sleeves and stuff all the time. Same thing.
Just
Like
really rough shufflers. Yeah.
so like I'm gonna have to like drop another $10 to probably like re-sleeve because you hacked a bunch of my
Mhm.
stuff, and that's not as bad as the I don't know. There was like a foil brainstorm that got creased at some point in an SUG that was
Mm,
like $400 or something.
that's
That's
tough.
probably the biggest instance of this that I remember. But like, yeah, just be careful, be courteous.
I will say the one time I am pro ruffle shuffle if you do not have sleeves on your cards, it's getting riffled. Like, you've forced my hand. The fuck else am I gonna do? Have you ever tried to shuffle unsleeved Magic cards without riffle shuffling them? Impossible. An impossible task you've given me.
Nah, I dealt poker for 3 years. I don't think most people have that experience though. But also at that point, they're kind of expecting their cards to get marked at least
Yeah,
at some point.
totally,
So
totally. It's more common though for like, I mean, like more casual play, especially like casual limited play. You
mm,
know, like if you go to like a pre-release FNM, whatever. Or sometimes with my newer, more casual like EDH friends, I'll be like Yami Yugiing them through a game, and they've got an unsleeved pre-con, and they'll be like, "Can you help me shuffle?" And I'm like, "It depends on what your comfort is."
yeah,
If you're comfortable with me riffle shuffling them, then yes, I can, and I will shuffle it so fast. But if you are not, then good luck.
I think that is all fine and fair.
Yeah, yeah,
Overall, I've found that all of these things kind of like serve the same greater end goal to me, which is I hope that my opponents generally walk away from a match with me like feeling good about the experience and like being able to maybe like form a good rapport with this person. Certainly, I don't want to take away from anyone's experience or diminish it in any regard. So yeah, I want to try to make tournaments fun for people if I am there, right? Like there is
mm,
no reason for me to try and make someone's day worse, even if it involves like an oopsie. Like my opponent dropped a card in his hand when he was shuffling, and like I just don't never want that to happen. I don't want there to be any weirdness, any awkwardness. Like let's just play, let's just have fun, have a good time. And yeah, I don't know. I think that people do appreciate that, whether or not they will be able to like verbalize that in the moment, not necessarily sure. But certainly I think at the end it has a positive effect. And like certainly I kind of have this habit now where people are like, oh yeah, we played like 10 years ago. And I was like, was it fun? I always ask them.
that's a really good response. I've never thought to do that.
And people could just be being nice, but I also
Mhm.
don't think that they would come up to me and be like, hey, we met 10 years ago, we played a match.
Right, if it
If it
wasn't
was
fun,
bad,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But so yeah, I am maybe sort of self-selecting, but
sure.
it means that like when they see me 10 years later, they want to come up and say hi,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
like
mhm.
talk about that match. Like I think that is awesome. That's incredible. You can do
Yeah,
that. Anyone can do that.
I try to be a fun opponent. I try to be a kind opponent, and like a clear, respectful opponent. And I mean, even to the point of like, I think like the after match etiquette, the aftercare, if you will, matters a lot as well.
It
Where it's
does.
like, something I try to be really good about is like someone had like an exciting but like lucky win against me. I try to like celebrate that with them, and be like,
Yep.
that was crazy. Like in not Portland, here where I live at SCG Portland, there, like I had like round one, I get triple fucking Emrakul by this dude. And afterwards, I'm just like, that was crazy. Three Emrakuls. I was like, the first two Emrakuls, those were fine. It's the third one that kills you, and we're just like talking about it and like laughing about it. And, like, was it crazy lucky that he top decked the third Emrakul? Yeah, that was nuts. But also, like, that's magic, baby. Like,
Yeah.
and that's just like, I don't know, a cooler and more exciting game than if it was just like, oh, like whatever, like it was back and forth a little bit, and then one person happened to win. It's like, yeah, you got exactly the Emrakul you needed at exactly the time you did. Sick.
Yeah. And then you like salt off in front of them, and then they're like, well, this kind of sucks. Next
Yeah,
time they see you, they walk off in the opposite direction. It's like
yeah.
who does
I
that
love it
serve?
when that stuff happens because, like, to me, I get a little bit absolved. You know, I'm like, I played
Sure.
really fucking well. I beat two Emrakuls. I was like positioned to win against two Emrakuls. That's nuts.
Well, like
You
that's
got the
what it
third
took.
one,
Yeah.
whatever. Like no one's gonna hear that I got triple Emrakul and be like, "Why'd you lose? You couldn't find the line?" And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, no. They took 3 turns for me in my black white blink deck where they just kept getting to like solitude my own things, blink it out of existence. Like crazy that I got as far as I did. To be frank,
Yep. I agree with that.
yeah.
Yeah, I think again, I don't know, just treating people well is positive EV. in the short term and the long
Totally.
term, and
Absolutely.
it's also just the right thing to do.
How you sleep at night. That's how we tie it back to the thing at the start.
What if I don't sleep well already?
No, I
But
don't
it's not.
either. I don't sleep well
It's
at all. I don't know
yeah. It's
why
not.
that's the phrase I used.
It's not because of my conscience, though. I know that.
No, it's just the insomnia, the anxiety.
Yeah, yeah. It is all those things.
Yeah. 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 I shouldn't have brought up the sleep stuff. It's just terrible for both of us. It is crazy to me. Like, you and I have been friends for a minute, but also, like, I feel like every time we come on here, I learn a new similarity that we share, you know?
It does seem like that. Yeah.
And it really makes me wonder, like, how much of our friendship working is just like we're actually extremely similar. And on some subconscious level, we both just like picked up on that quickly. And then just like as we sort of learn more and more about each other, it's like, oh yeah, same, you know?
Well, you shitpost, and I am like way too neurodivergent to shitpost, basically.
It's just two
And
sides of the same coin.
fair, very fair. I definitely did not really think about it that way. But I mean that was how I was first introduced to you, was via the internet, right?
Of course,
And
most people's first introduction to me.
yeah, and my initial reaction was like, we're the same, she and I. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely would say I'm so neurodivergent that I can't stop shitposting. I was talking to someone today where I was like, the worst part about making like a serious call out post like I did today is that for the rest of the day I can't shitpost. You
Nope.
know? I
Nope.
have to let it
Uh,
breathe. I have to let
Also,
it
like,
live
what's the
and stand on
statute
its
of
own.
limitations? Next day, is it just back to business
Next
as
day's
usual?
business as usual. I've
Okay.
all day long I was just like, God, I wish I have so many funny things to say. You know what I mean? Like but
You're
I
already
can't.
like,
Oh God, yeah. I've got things to say, you know? And yeah, it's just you can't. Gotta let it breathe. But yeah, I am definitely ready to get back to regularly scheduled shit posting.
yeah, when you have to make a post like that, it's not a good
It
thing.
sucks. There's nothing fun about it. There's not one good thing about it at all. It's tit to taint sucks.
See, I've never heard that phrase before. We're
It's
not
pretty
the
good.
same.
Sometimes I switch it up. Sometimes I say tit to teeth, which is a much shorter distance, but I don't know, feels good in the mouth to say it.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. But yeah, tournament ethics, good stuff. We have a couple of questions that were sent in to us via email, which we greatly appreciate. If you have questions you would like Jerry and I to answer, you can send them in via email. You can send them to me directly, nilejoanrivers@gmail.com. You can tag us on Twitter, Blue Sky, catch us on Discord. You can comment on one of these podcasts, really anything. Anyways, this one is from Briar, who we answered a question from a week or two ago. And they said, hello again. My question this week is, how do you go about politely informing your opponent they're on the verge of / in the territory of slow play? I always feel bad bringing it up and often find myself feeling irritated after a game that went to time or turns when it didn't need to. This goes for both comp REL events and more low-key things like a pre-release. And this is something we kind of talked about today.
A
But do you
little
have
bit.
anything you wanna
I
add
forgot.
to it, Jerry?
I forgot this was coming, actually. But yeah, I have plenty to say on this, but I will just try to keep it as short as possible. Basically,
Sure.
you are trying to, in my mind, communicate an idea to someone where it's just like,
Mhm.
you need to play faster. And what is the most effective way to communicate that? I tend to feel like it is in a manner which is not accusatory. It's not, yo, you are playing slow. You need to play faster. It's in both of our best interests for this match to finish on time. I
Mhm.
think we both need to play a little bit faster for this game. And
Mhm.
you make it an us thing, right? Like we're in this together. And for the most part, people have been way more receptive to that. There are still people who are like, us together. No, 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 no. This is me against you. And I will do whatever the hell I want. And I'm just like, okay. But I'm pretty sure nothing I could have said in that scenario would reach you anyway. So
Yeah.
that's it. That's my advice.
No, I do the same. You know, like I always act. It's me and you versus the clock. Like, I will also often in doing this make mention of the time. So I'll be like, oh, we have 25 minutes left. We should probably like pick up the pace a little bit. Like
Yeah,
we should both probably pick up the pace a little. The closest I think I get to being really directly like hurry the fuck up is someone's like tanking for a long time on something. I'll be like, hey, just a reminder, like we have like 10 minutes left, Or I'll be like, I'm not trying to rush you. We have 5 minutes on the clock. I'm not trying to rush you is a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. I am
it
trying to
is.
fucking rush you.
Always. Yeah.
Make a choice. I'm just trying to manage your emotions when I rush you. But yeah, that's as close as I get to really like directly saying hurry the fuck up.
Yeah, it is definitely complicated and I think has gotten worse over the last handful of years as people have come in and again like are not necessarily familiar with tournament etiquette sort of stuff and is completely understandable. It's just
Mhm.
a reality that I have had to live with and I think, many other people like if Breyer is sending this question and clearly they have too and
Yeah.
it can be frustrating absolutely. I still have not figured out how to like not get frustrated by it and i I think you just have to accept that it is reality to some degree. It's like
Mhm.
you can try to prompt folks to play faster, you can try to set a good example, et cetera, but like it might not be enough and you just kind of have to eat it sometimes.
Totally. And the last thing I'll say on it, and this is a thing that I don't think a lot of people do at tournaments, but I think more people should do, is once you get out of that game where you feel like your opponent was slow playing, whether they meant to be or not, go talk to a judge. Go talk to a judge and be like, "Hey, could have just been a stressful game. I don't know for sure, but just so you know, I felt like my opponent was playing really slowly. It's all fine. Match is over. We've submitted whatever. Just like for you guys as records, that's how I felt." And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, if something occurs with that player later where someone feels like they're playing slow, they already have been told about this. And that makes it way easier for them to be like, yeah, this is probably a person playing too slowly. But two, also, maybe just like piques their interest a little bit. And if they have spare time during the match, like future matches, they might just walk by that table, and just see like, how's that guy doing? Can I observe a little bit of play? Does it look okay? Like I think reporting slow play to judges early and often is a thing like we as a community should do more.
I would do that if I thought it would help. If they had like a
Mm,
better system for like keeping track of those things and recording them, but I don't believe that sort of thing exists. Like if you know the judge personally and know that like if they have time or
mhm.
that if it does come up in the future where this person, the judge deals with the person and it's like, oh yeah, Nile told me about this person, like clearly there is something going on here. Like then that's awesome. But aside from
Yeah.
that, it's just like, I don't know, going and telling a random judge, they're going to be like, okay, that's nice.
Yeah, sure. I
I
mean, yeah,
wish it were different.
admittedly, this might just be a thing that I like doing because I am friends with a lot of judges. So like basically any event I go to, I know at least a judge personally, and
Yeah.
that's usually who I'm gonna go talk to. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's just like ineffective if it's you don't have that sort of relationship. But I find it good.
I think it might be.
I'll
And
sometimes do it in matches that I wasn't even a part of. Like
yeah,
I will just be like observing afterwards, and I'll be like, that person's playing really slowly, and then I'll go walk up to a judge and be like, hey, I was watching this match. That person's playing really slowly. Maybe go watch it yourself. Maybe just make a note of it. I don't know. It's up to you. I'm just, relaying the information. But yeah, Briar, hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for sending in another question. We greatly appreciate it. Send in 100 more if you want. The last question for today comes from Keith, also into the old email inbox. Thank you, Keith. And Keith says, I love the show. Excited to hear your thoughts on this. As a recent adopter of this season of Standard, I've been enjoying the accessibility of Fastlands. Are there any previously printed lands or ideas for a new land cycle you would want to see in Standard? This is a very interesting question.
have you ever heard of Underground Sea? Be cool if we could. Yeah, the fast lanes are great. I especially like that. I don't know, just them being reprinted means that they are cheaper and thus more affordable, more accessible. It got the other ones
Hmm.
into Pioneer and stuff like that. I think that was all really good. Pathways, I also liked quite a bit, and kind of in the same vein, I like the Verges quite a bit.
I
And
love the Verges.
there's still a cycle of Verges to come, right? Like they have to do the
Yeah,
other side of them at some point, and I think that that's going to be really cool too. So,
yeah,
I
that is
it's
sick.
kind of a cheaty answer, but that's my answer.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. Here's my version of a cheaty answer for this. I'll tell you the ones I most don't want to see in standard, and those are shocklands. I love shocklands. I love playing with them. I don't think they're a good fit for standard, and I think it's the most common thing, especially when I talk to like grinders. And this came up a lot right before Foundations came out because it was a big thing of like what's going to be the
Mhm.
Foundations land. What's going to be like the land that is going to be in standard for at least 5 years.
Yeah,
So
none.
many grinders I would talk to would be like, it should be Shocklands. And I'd be like, you're insane. You don't know. You don't understand new players at all, I don't think, if you think that Shocklands are a good new player experience.
They just don't care about the new players. They're thinking about what's good for them.
Yeah, I know because they're grinders. They're comp pilled. But
EV
I personally
brain.
would, yeah, I would hate to see Shocklands in standard.
I agree. Underground sea over watery grave.
Yeah, Underground
That's way
Sea.
better.
I mean, you could sell me on the duels. You could sell me on the duels in standard for sure.
They can still ban them. That's fine.
Yeah, who cares?
Just rebrand
Whatever.
them.
They're just lands. Whatever.
Let's go.
Yeah, I also adore the Verges. I think the Pathways would be kind of sick to have back in standard. Very cool. Very cool. I don't know. I really love the choice that the Pathways force you into.
This is definitely a
I
better
just think
online
they're neat.
experience,
Sure. Sure.
but I do.
I just think they're neat. But yeah, thank you for your question, Keith. Yeah, that is all the time we have for today. A little bit of a long one, but Jerry, thank you as always for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And thank you, dear listener, for listening. It's been a pleasure with you as well, as always. You're always so great. And that's it for us. Catch us next week with more of this kind of stuff. Bye bye. Love you.